let's dive into the story of one of history's ultimate power players, Catherine the Great. For 34 years, she ruled the massive Russian Empire, really dragging it kicking and screaming onto the world stage as a major European force. But the real story, the part that's so fascinating, is just packed with contradictions. And that right there is the central puzzle of her entire reign. You see, Catherine publicly presented herself as this monarch of the Enlightenment, a real champion of reason and modern ideas. But at the same time, this is the very same ruler who tightened the chains of serfdom on millions of her own people. So how on earth do we reconcile the philosopher with the tyrant? To even begin to understand her, you have to go back to the beginning. And honestly, the most stunning part of her story is that she wasn't Russian at all. She had zero claim to the throne that she would one day take for herself. And her climb to the top was just incredibly fast. I mean, look at this timeline. She shows up as a teenager from some minor German state, gets stuck in a totally miserable marriage to the heir, Peter, who nobody likes. But all the while, she's playing the long game. She's learning Russian, she's converting to the Orthodox Church, she's making friends in high places. The very moment her husband takes the throne and starts messing up, she makes her move. With the army on her side, she pulls off this stunningly quick, bloodless coup. And boom, just like that, the complete outsider is now in charge. Her husband, Peter III, he was forced to step down, and just 8 days later, he died under, well, let's just call them mysterious circumstances. It was a very convenient end that cemented her power, and it just goes to show you that from day one, her rule was built on pure, uncut ambition and some seriously ruthless political math. Okay, so seizing power is one thing, but actually holding on to it, that's a whole other ballgame. As a foreign usurper, Catherine desperately needed to make her rule legitimate, and her strategy for this was nothing short of brilliant. She decided to craft a brand new image for herself and for Russia as an enlightened monarch leading a modern, forward-thinking nation. And this wasn't just some PR stunt. She was actually writing back and forth with the greatest thinkers of the age, people like Voltaire and Diderot. There's this famous story where she bought Diderot's entire library when he needed the money, and then paid him a salary to be its librarian for the rest of his life. Beyond that, she called together this huge commission from all corners of the empire to write a new, modern set of laws. And she even wrote the instruction manual for them herself, a document called the Nakaz. This quote from her Nakaz just perfectly captures the philosophy she was putting out there. I mean, it sounds incredibly progressive for an 18th century absolute ruler, doesn't it? She's talking about the glory of the citizens, pulling ideas straight from Enlightenment thinkers. On paper, at least, she was making herself out to be a champion of a government based on logic and the rule of law. But while having lofty ideals on paper is one thing, actually governing the vast, chaotic, and deeply feudal Russian Empire was something else entirely. And pretty soon, Catherine's enlightened ideas were about to smash head-on into a very brutal reality. And the core of that reality was this one brutal institution, serfdom. Basically, you have to think of it as a system where peasants were legally tied to the land they worked. They were essentially the property of the landowners, with almost no rights whatsoever. By the end of her reign, this was life for over half the population. Serfdom powered the entire economy, and it was the foundation of nobility's power. And you have to remember, the nobility were the people keeping Catherine on that throne. And right here is where the contradiction just becomes so stark. Her own document, the Nakaz, called for legal equality for all, but in practice, she passed laws that made the lives of serfs even worse. She literally made it illegal for them to complain about their masters, and even spread serfdom into new territories like Ukraine. It's so clear that whenever she had to choose between her enlightened ideals and keeping the nobles happy, the nobles won every single time. And if she had any liberal dreams left, this event completely shattered them. The Pugachev Rebellion was a gigantic, unbelievably violent peasant uprising that just set huge parts of Russia on fire. It was eventually crushed, but the sheer brutality of it all shook Catherine and the entire ruling class to their very core. After that, any talk of reforming serfdom was completely off the table. The fear of another revolt just made her double down on absolute power, strengthening the very system of oppression she once claimed she wanted to change. So while her reforms at home were a story of compromise and contradiction, her foreign policy was a whole different story. This was an area of just stunning, unambiguous success. This is where she truly earned the title the Great. Just look at that number for a second. Over 500,000 square kilometers. That is an area larger than the entire country of Spain today. Through a mix of successful wars and really sharp diplomacy, she dramatically expanded the borders of her empire. And these weren't just empty tracts of land. She defeated the Ottoman Empire twice, securing the whole northern coast of the Black Sea and, this is the big one, annexing Crimea. This finally gave Russia the warm water ports it had wanted for centuries, which were absolutely vital for trade and for its navy. And then to the west, she helped carve up Poland, absorbing huge territories that now make up a lot of modern Ukraine, Belarus, and Lithuania. She literally redrew the map of Eastern Europe.
So after all of this, how do we sum up a reign of such brilliance and such brutality? Well, her legacy is, at its very heart, a paradox.
This table really does a great job of capturing the two sides of her rule. For every major achievement, you find this powerful contradiction. So yes, she pushed for cultural modernization, founding museums and schools, but she also brought in strict political censorship. She expanded the empire, but that created new instability in the region. She talked a big game about legal reform while making life for the serfs even worse. And she built stronger government institutions, but only to cement her own absolute unquestioned power. So in the end, Catherine the Great absolutely succeeded in her main goal. She made Russia a top-tier global power. It was bigger, stronger, and more plugged into European culture than it had ever been before. But, and it's a huge but, that success came at a very steep price. It created this enormous, unbridgeable gap between the glittering, westernized elite and the millions of oppressed people they ruled. Which leaves us with one last, big question to think about. By making autocracy more efficient and digging the roots of serfdom deeper than ever before, did this enlightened empress accidentally create the very social pressures that would, just over a century later, finally explode into revolution and bring the entire system she built crashing down?